There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
I am delighted to welcome a new guest to Bite Size Book Chats. This is Susan from North Carolina. Susan, welcome.
Hey, Sean, how are you?
How lovely to have you here. And especially because you have recently read and loved and wrote a fabulous review of a novel that is coming close to the top of my reading pile. And that is one of the Furrowed Middlebrow reprints, Apricot Sky by Ruby Ferguson, originally published 1952 and just came out maybe last year or earlier this year. Yeah. Furrowed Middlebrow. So please tell us about this book.
It's lovely because it's one of those books, and I recommended it actually for my Goodreads group. We decided to try a book pool this year. And so we each had to contribute 5 titles. And I kind of went down the Furrowed Middlebrow rabbit hole. I found this one and I found several others that I absolutely adored. And one of the things that they all had in common that I enjoyed was that they're kind of books about nothing, not like in the kind of in the Seinfeld sense, where they're just everyday life among characters and nothing spectacular happens. This one is really focused on a summer in 1948. The conclusion of it is going to be one of the daughters of the household's wedding. And the beginning opens up just as summer is opening up and the grandchildren who are war orphans are coming home to their grandparents' house in the Highlands and their adventures. And another daughter is returning home from a stint working in the States. It's a slice of life kind of thing. And it's told from several points of view. It's partly from the older mother, and then partly from the daughter who's come back from the States and who has this tremendous crush on a neighbor. And then partly from the point of view of the grandchildren who are on school break. And one of the things that I found most touching about the book is she manages to convey just the sense of, when I was reading the parts about the grandchildren going sailing and exploring and just, that feeling of, it's summer, we're out of school, and I mean, that just brought that home to me. And I'm 56, but that feeling, a universal feeling of children, like we are free. And you think the whole summer is before you and it's going to be amazing. And so these kids set off and they're setting adventures. And one of the first couple scenes is the eldest, who is a girl, her name is Primrose, and she's a fabulous character. She just describes, they've sailed, they're on the beach, she's laying on a warm rock, and she just describes the sound of the waves, her eyes are shut, the warm rock under her back, the feel, this is her first outing this summer with her brothers, she's free from school, and it just brought this huge wave of nostalgia to me. And it's just this incredible, lovely feeling without sentimental wonkishness. That just sucked me right in. I was just so impressed with her.
Well, that story, it takes place in the Scottish Highlands.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And did it feel, we have checked, both of us, and we understand that the author, Ruby Ferguson, is not Scottish, but the foreword is written by a Scottish author who praises the book highly. So it has a ring of authenticity.
It does. And I was impressed, but I was not familiar with the author who did the foreword, but I got the impression. And then I did a little research on her later too. And yes, she is kind of, I wouldn't say elder stateswoman, but she's an impressive voice in literature. And she says that she was impressed. She captured with some wry humor, not snarky humor, but she did capture with wry humor some of the staples of Scottish culture, as far as the fayness, like the whole family believes in the little people. Their home looks out, and the descriptions of the views are just breathtaking. They look out on some of the distant islands. They believe that some of them are, the little people live there, and they're kind of bewitched islands and stuff like that. So she captured that. And there's like this old man author who, in an opening scene, he's just like walking to the village or something and stops to talk to the mother at the gate. And the author has fun with the idea of the kind of the mystical author who writes this kind of, fey Scottish romances kind of thing. It's only a walk-on thing, but it just kind of establishes that feeling. Yeah.
There's quite a few delightful small moments.
Yes, a lot of lovely little, and I love that when I've come across it in, different books of the period, where it's just little, conversations between people. Sometimes the humor is a little more waspish, like in E.F. Benson's, like the Lucia novels, which I absolutely adore.
Me too.
Yeah, those are brilliant. And it's just, those make me just laugh out loud, but these are more kind of gentle little pokes, but but funny. And, just like there's they have a visitor who the parents have kind of kept in touch with, and it's a husband and wife. He's a doctor and she is a hypochondriac, and she always refers to her husband as the doctor. Did I mention my husband's a doctor, kind of a thing, so that was great. And she talks constantly about her operation, which apparently was not that major, and it happened like almost a year before, but she constantly refers to my operation. And I barely felt the leftover remnants of my operation. The air is so cleansing, it barely bothered me, my operation. Like, hey, did I mention my husband's a doctor and I've had an operation? So it was...
You're selling it to me. I don't know if I can wait. So my story with this book is I bought it, and then I have just recently moved from Tokyo to Saskatchewan, Canada, and I had to mail most of my books to me. So that book is in transit. So I'm not sure if I might have to get the ebook to start sooner, because it sounds fabulous. Character-driven novel, right?
Yes, definitely. And again, the thing is, though, what's lovely is if you want to wait for your book, the thing that's nice, and I noticed this in several of my Goodreads friends who reviewed it have said, it's one of those you can dip in and out. There's no urgency, like, oh, I've got to get back. I've got to, get the resolution of this cliffhanger. It's not like that. It's just one of those lovely, like a soft, cushy chair you can just kind of sink into. And that's why it's a great summer read, because it's just, when you have time, pick it up. You'll sink into it. You'll be happy reading for half an hour and not even notice the time. But if you have to put it down for a couple of days because of work or whatever, it's there. And it's like a welcoming old friend when you go back to it. It's delightful.
Well, that's lovely. Now, the thing that I just found out before we started chatting is that the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, current Queen Elizabeth's mother, she loved another novel by the same author. So there's another Scottish vote of approval for the fiction of Ferguson. Yes.
I'm impressed. That's pretty, I did not know that. I was curious about her myself, and I don't know if I think it says, that's how I learned it on either Wikipedia or on Goodreads, that I wonder, because her ability to get inside a kid's head and the memories she evoked in me of being that age and just being those summer memories of, and there is the most beautiful passage at the end of the book. It's not a spoiler, but where the kids, Primrose and her brother, think back about how it was like the last day before their aunt's wedding that they had to get all dressed up for, just to get, oh God, my aunt's wedding, that kind of thing. But they have their last outing, their last tennis game or their last little sail, and they realize this is it. This is the last day. Tomorrow's the wedding, and then we have to go back to school. And as they have to put their boat away, it's heartbreaking, that just the thought that next week we'll be back in class, we'll be back at boarding school, we'll be back in school. And who has not felt that at the end of a summer vacation? And her ability to evoke that, the way that children think and the way that we felt when we were kids about summer and school, And I was so impressed. So I looked, and it turns out she wrote children's books too. So that kind of made sense to me. I'm like, this woman knows how to get inside a kid's head.
I see one of her novels has been reprinted by Persephone. I'm not sure what else. Maybe not a lot, but I'm sure that Fergal Middlebrow will bring more of her books back in print. So. Yeah. Well, I have two strong feelings at the end of our chat. One is I can't wait to read this book, but the other one is I hope that you'll come back and chat with me again, Susan.
I would love to.
I am so excited because this is my first ever guest from Iran. Please welcome Ladan in Tehrān. Ladan, welcome.
Thank you. It's really nice meeting you, and I'm so excited to be on this show.
Well, I'm very excited too, and we are here to talk about, I believe you call this your favorite book. It is an Austrian novel called Woodcutters by the famous German language writer, Austrian writer, Thomas Bernhard. There it is, translated from the German by David McLintock. Tell us about the book.
Well, the book is about an unknown writer. He's the narrator of the book, and at the end of the book, he states that he is going to write the whole story and publish it in a book. So I think that's kind of a revelation that the writer is Thomas Bernhard himself. Actually, that's what I think. That's my idea. The narrator, he is from Vienna, and he has lived there for something like 20 years. He has lots of artist friends there, and he loves them. He admires them. He believes that they are a bunch of unfulfilled potentials. But then his feelings towards his friends gradually changes. It's like there is a love-hate relationship towards these people. And then he tries to leave them. He moves to London. Now something like 20 or 30 years passes, and he's been informed that one of his best friends, Joanna, has committed suicide. He comes back to Vienna to take part in her funeral. He has to calm himself down, and he walks up and down some streets in Vienna. There's a term that he uses, and I really dig it. He calls it walking therapy. He really, yes, it's really a great term, I think. And I find it as a good therapy. I myself use this therapy. He doesn't want to meet any of those old days friends. But chances are, as he walks up and down those streets, he meets them. But again, as he feels so good using this kind of therapy and walking up and down these streets, he prefers to be there and have this great feeling, even if there is the risk of meeting those friends that he doesn't enjoy their company. And suddenly it happens, and he meets a couple called Arsbergers, and they invite him to an artistic party, and they state that he's gonna meet all those old friends, old artist friends there. There are two parts that I want to read it from the book, and it's a thing that I really enjoy about Thomas Bernhard, and especially about this main character that narrates the book. He is sometimes, even you say, he is mean, he is cruel. He is cruel, but at the same time, he is brutal to himself. See here, he says, a strong person with strength of character to match would have declined their invitation, the invitation of Arsbergers to their artistic party. But I'm not strong, and I have no strength of character. You know, he criticizes even himself. On the contrary, the very weakest person with the very weakest character. And that's what makes me more or less everyone's victims. And there is another part that I really enjoy it. He says, and suddenly it struck me what a low, ridiculous character I myself was. He criticizes other people. When he goes and joins that party, he is sitting in his wing chair, and he reminds us of his position many, many times through the novel, telling that he is sitting in his wing chair. It's like there's a passive person who is an observer and just criticizes the other people.
I believe that there is a special guest, a guest of honor, coming to the party later.
Yes, exactly. There's an actor that they have invited to the party. And at first, this character, this main character, the writer, he has a hatred towards this actor because he comes to the party very late. And as he brags about all those roles that he has been acting, the writer has a bad feelings towards him and tries to belittle him by his words and sentences. But then there's a twist at the end of the night. There is a twist in the actor's character. And that's when the writer confesses that he really enjoys that twist. And it's like, there was a love and hate relationship between the writer and his friends. Now there is a love and hate relationship in a very short time between he and this character that is the guest of honor to this party.
So the central event of the novel, the one that's happening in the present time of the story, is this party.
Yes, exactly.
If it's not a spoiler, what about the title, Woodcutters?
The actor at some point mentions that guest of honor. He mentions that he would like to go to the forest and live like a woodcutter. He is a famous actor, and people would crave to invite him to their parties. After all, he tries to go to places like mountains and places where he can be alone and have lonely time so that he can prepare himself for the roles that he's going to act and think about them. And at the end of the night, he mentions that he would really want to live the life of a woodcutter.
Tell us why you loved this book so much.
I think there are lots of people who can identify themselves, identify with the main character. And there's something about books that I really like. Sometimes in real life, we're not allowed. It's not ethical to hate some characteristics of other people. Especially now in the age of Instagrammers and fake people, I feel a hatred towards these people that they know they're selling lies to other people, but they don't accept it. And they insist on selling these lies and insist on being fake people. This book is old. The book is even older than me, but it's talking about an issue, a concern that nowadays I myself have about criticizing these fake people. And after that, I feel a kind of relief. It's like, yes, there is someone who has the same feeling. And what is, again, adorable about this guy is that he even hates some of the characteristics, the fake things that are in himself.
I should have said earlier in the chat, this book was originally published in 1984. The translation came out much later. Ladan, thank you so much for telling us about it.
You're welcome.
This is an exciting moment in the Bite-Sized Book Chat series. Larry of Larry Has Opinions is joining us from London. Larry, hello.
Hello. Hello.
So the first question, I can't help but ask it this bluntly. Where the hell have you been?
I've been really bad, guilty as charged. I've really not been posting regularly, and I can't even promise that I will be posting regularly, but I really do want to keep the channel alive if I can, even if I post one video every now and then. But yeah, I miss it a little bit, but on the other hand, it's a big commitment to keep posting regularly. So kudos to you, Sean, that you've been doing this for years now, so well done.
There's nothing wrong with having some downtime and also doing episodically, whatever suits you best. In the meantime, please come back on this series any old time. Keep your feet in it, and maybe this will give you a little bit of a taste of BookTube when you'll come back. And the other question I just have to ask, I thought that was something painted on your wall, but it's actually a fabulous piece of art. Can you tell us about the art that is usually in the backdrop of your videos?
It is a painting. I sort of commissioned it, if you like, when I moved into this place. I wanted something for that wall, so I knew this guy was doing similar style paintings. I like that sort of abstract, a bit colorful style, so that's where it came from. I'm quite happy with it, and I'm happy a lot of people comment about it, say they like my backdrop. A slightly different backdrop today, but that's my trademark, if you like. So
if you don't come back to BookTube, I might try to buy it from you. We are here to talk about a Finnish Kosovan gay novel called Bolla. Is that how we're pronouncing it? Bolla?
I think so.
I think so too. We'll pronounce it Bolla, and the author is the Kosovar Finnish novelist Pajtim Statovci. This, I think, came out in English translation just this year, translated by David Hackston. And I have been stalking Larry's Goodreads for some time, wanting him to come on the series. And this is the first 5-star read you've had in quite a while, I believe.
Yeah, I'm very stingy with my 5 stars, but this one I felt really deserved it. I read it actually as part of a book club, so you might have seen this book come up from other booktubers as well. I would say most people in my book club liked it, but I liked it very much, which is not unusual for me because I'm quite stingy with my 5 stars. Like it really takes a lot for me to give 5 stars a book, because quite often, I feel like I like a book, I respect a book, but for me, a 5-star is something that really grips you, really resonates with you, and that it kind of stays with you for a long time. And I can say, even though now it's been probably a month since I read it, I still remember it very well, and I can tell that it will stay with me for quite a long time. So there's different reasons, I guess, why that is. I'm going to give a little bit of the synopsis maybe in a moment, but just as a general thing, I would say it's a pretty dark book with an unlikable main character, and that already I think might not be for everyone, because a lot of people like to be able to root for the main character, or really identify strongly with a character, and I'm not quite sure this is that kind of book. And it's dark also because of the environment, because it's all set in Kosovo, well, mostly in Kosovo, in the 90s during the civil war in former Yugoslavia. So again, like against a backdrop that is quite depressing in a lot of ways and quite dramatic. And again, that might not be for everyone. But essentially the story covers these two main characters. We could say couple, but it's a bit tricky to define them as a couple. But it's these two gay guys who are grown men in their 20s, but essentially one day they just happenstance, they meet up, they bump into each other, and they start chatting, and they sort of fall in love. And crucially, they have very different backgrounds, because one of the main characters has Albanian background, and the other one is from Serbia. So that's kind of already on the two sides of the conflict of the civil war. Absolutely. So that's already a very intriguing premise, if you like. What I was saying that I'm not sure if we can say this is the story of the couple is because the author really focuses on their individual stories more than on their relationship. And I think when you pick up this sort of book, it's quite easy to expect some, cliches about, tragic relationship, tear-jerking sort of book. As I said, this is pretty dark and it's not a happy book. But also it's not really about that relationship that much, but more about these two lives that at some point happen to intersect. And what I would also say is the fact that the foundations for this relationship are a bit flimsy in some respect, also transpires later on in how the story evolves. I would say that for the first half of the book, I was sort of enjoying it, but I wasn't quite too sure where he was going. I was a bit on the fence. And then the second half of the book is where I really felt completely engrossed, and when it really became that 5-star for me, where I had to stay up to finish it one night, which doesn't happen too often to me. Like quite often I'm just happy, I'm tired, just finish it tomorrow, it's fine. This one, it really kept me up until I finished it, and that's kind of what made it a 5 stars for me.
What made you so engrossed? What made you stay up late at night? Was it the unfolding of the plot?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So the plot definitely drives a lot of the story, but it's also quite character focused because we really delve into the psyche of these two main characters. As I said, the main character, the Albanian one, is particularly unlikable, I would say. It also reflects a lot of the challenges that closeted gay men can, experience in their lives when they grow up, having to conform with what society expects of them. And especially in the 90s, in that sort of environment, it's definitely something that is very prominent. So from that perspective, you want to sympathize and empathize with him. But at the same time, some of the things that he does kind of make it a bit difficult to root for him, because he's not evil, but some of the things that he does are very questionable. That's one of the reasons also why I really like this book, is that because I don't like books about heroes and villains. I like books where people are just people, and some good people do really bad things, some bad people do good things, and everyone is a different shade of gray, if you like, and no one is quite perfect. And he's particularly the embodiment of this, even though some of the things, I think for a lot of people probably push him a bit further out in terms of where he falls on that spectrum. But he's also the sort of character that doesn't really take a lot of decisions, a lot of actions. A lot of these things that happen to him really just sort of happen to him, and he just goes along with them. So, for instance, this character who was born in Kosovo, at some point it becomes a refugee, so he essentially flees away from the war, from the civil war, and becomes a refugee in another country that remains unnamed. We could think it might be Finland, given that the author is Finnish but was born in Kosovo. So while I was reading it, I really pictured it as Finland, but it could be another country, really. Yeah, a book about fear, which obviously, when you talk about war, fear is a crucial element. And again, the two very different responses from the two different main characters, but also quite a reflection on how fear kind of drives a lot of decisions that people make, and how there's some very interesting quote about it, which I don't remember in detail, but something about, some people fear everything they shouldn't, some people should be fearing more and they don't care, kind of thing. So there's some very interesting reflections about that theme as well that I quite enjoyed.
In closing, I just have to say what an absolute delight it has been listening to you talk about this book for the last 15 minutes. Most booktuber guests I've had, I don't really need to ask very many questions, but this has just been an unparalleled delight, which makes me miss your channel all the more. But if you don't start back up on your channel regularly, I need you to appear on mine regularly. How's that for a deal?
Sure. Thank you very much, Sean. That's really sweet of you.
What a delight to welcome Teresa from Northern New Jersey back. Teresa, thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me again.
And I won't do a recounting of all the crazy things that have gone wrong since we started to set up this interview in the last 7 minutes, but Teresa's been very patient with me, so thank you very much. And good things come to those who wait, because Teresa is here to talk about a Korean novel that when I read the first 2 sentences of the synopsis, I thought, oh my God, this is not a Sean book. And by the time I got to the end of reading the synopsis, I thought, oh my God, this really does sound like a Sean book. So it is called The Old Woman with the Knife by Gu Byeong-mo, translated by Chi Young Kim. And you loved it.
I did. It was a really strong 4-star read. It wasn't a 5-star read. It was a really strong 4-star read. No, I thought it was really good. It's about a 65-year-old woman in Korea. She is a disease control specialist. In other words, she's an assassin, a paid assassin. She's very good.
So the disease something is her front job?
No, that's just what they call it. That's just how they refer to each other. She's a disease control specialist. She's a paid assassin, and she's very good at it. And she is beginning to be concerned because she's starting to lose her edge, as one does at the age of 65. And she's starting to make very minor slips, but she's a perfectionist. She's used to killing quietly and well. She also has a young man who's also a disease control specialist who is nipping at her heels, trying to replace her. And in addition, at some point, she finally decides, or she's pretty sure, that someone is trying to kill her. So there's a lot going on.
Not a good time to lose one's edge.
Right, exactly. There's a lot going on, but what Kim is really trying to look at is aging in Korea and dealing with changes, which we all have to face at one time or another. And it's really interesting. She takes it very seriously, but there's definitely a satirical edge to the writing and a very wry tone at times, even though some of it's quite affecting. But for the most part, this is a hard satirical look at aging and the culture of Korea. If you liked Parasite the movie, or if you liked Squid Game the TV show, I would say this book is probably for you. Okay. And with that, I'll warn you that it's a very violent book. She's the paid assassin. She kills people and she does it violently. When I finished the book, because I did like the movie Parasite and I did like the TV show Squid Game, I thought, why haven't I heard about this being optioned? And then it dawned on me, nobody wants to do a TV show about a 65-year-old woman. So we'll probably never see this in a TV show or film. But it's definitely something that lends itself to that kind of next step.
When I first read that she was an assassin, I thought, oh, this is kind of spy something or something. But no, it's usually there's some just reason for the killing. And in fact, it's often not political, is it? The reason, motivation for the...
It's rarely political.
That's right.
It's rarely political. And in fact, she starts to deal with the changes in the kind of people that... Now, I should say at this point, you find out fairly early on that she was one of the co-founders of this paid assassin group. And so she's starting to deal with corporate espionage that's happening in her work life in terms of people that she's hired to kill, but she's also starting to deal with it in her personal corporate life as a disease control specialist. So it deals with a lot of changes in society and changes in the way we all do business, even if you're a paid assassin. She's funny, she's likable, she's definitely in the anti-hero category. They put you in the moral seat of wanting to root for her while she's out killing people. I will just say that the ending was delightfully unexpected, which was good.
Now, I struggle with satire. So I didn't get that from the synopsis. How heavy is the satire? Like, if it's satirical, mildly satirical or whatever, but I am still able to root for her. And you did mention already that the
Yes.
novel is created for you to root for her. So maybe it will be okay for me.
I think you'd be fine. It doesn't lean on the satire. It's definitely there. We're talking about a disease control specialist. So definitely It's there, but it doesn't dominate the story. Her concerns become your concerns.
Okay.
She starts to become interested in a family, which is very unlike her because she is not a sentimental woman. And she's starting to have concerns about a family that she's kind of starting to get involved in their life a little bit. And they're having corporate concerns, and the things happening in her world, she kind of starts to equate with the things happening in their world. Tender is not the right word to say. She is a paid assassin, but you definitely lens everything through her eyes.
And my last question is, Teresa, are you a disease control specialist?
Maybe I am. Who knows?
We'll be in touch offline. I have a few people I want to knock off.
Okay.
You may be stingy of giving 5-star ratings to your books, but this was a 5-star chat. Teresa, thank you so much.